Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened.
There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
Good night and good luck.
Hey folks, it's Rick Wilson and welcome back to the Lincoln Project podcast. There are 88 days till the election since I am recording this on Friday, August the 9th. And this week's elephant in the room is Donald Trump's insane press conference, but it's also the media reaction to that insane press conference. What you saw yesterday at Mar-a-Lago was a callback, a throwback, a retro car show from 2016. And in 2016, Donald Trump could summon the media to wherever he was, and he could demand that they take him live and demand that the networks all cover him live, and they would. And you saw yesterday, and I'm going to get to Trump's behavior in a second. I really am. What you saw yesterday was something I think is pretty dangerous and pretty pernicious. And that is, in the year of our Lord 2024, at a moment where we finally have flying cars, you can't let Donald Trump be on television without fact-checking him. And I'd love, fact-check any politician, I don't care. But in Trump's particular case, what he did yesterday was go out there and get almost completely unconstrained, unfact-checked in real time coverage.
Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more. And they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole thing, all the way back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people.
It was a tornado of lies. It was a tidal wave of bullshit.
The Congo has just released a lot of people from jail. Congo, Africa, just released a lot of people from their prisons and jails and brought them into the United States of America.
It was an endless series of deceptions, lies, delusions, all coming from a guy who, for all that he is falling apart mentally, for all that he is losing that old magic he once had, his power over America that he once had, he still knew very clearly that this live coverage, wall to wall, on every freaking network there is, would end up convincing just a few people. It would end up convincing just enough people. He's playing a game at the margins, and he's trying to re-energize a very dispirited Republican base. And he does that by lying. He knows that he's lying. They know that he's lying. The press knows that he's lying. But you know who doesn't know he's lying? All the normies out there. All the people that aren't like us, who follow politics intimately and intensely and constantly. If you have a guy like Donald Trump on that stage, and the predicates of your questions are not structured in such a way to anticipate the lie, it's not that you're doing objective journalism. It's that you're entering into a room with a known bad faith actor and giving him a free runway, giving him the ability to go out and say shit that you know and he knows and we know is a lie. Now, Lawrence O'Donnell said this last night on his air better than I ever could. Wildly better than I ever could. But Trump yesterday, for all the lies and all the bullshitting and all the fabulous stories, that's ULIST, not AOUS, all the fabulous stories he told. Willie Brown and the helicopter, it never happened.
Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together, and there was an emergency landing. This was not a pleasant landing. And Willie was, he was a little concerned.
Donald, you were in a helicopter with Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom, and it wasn't Willie Brown. Jerry Brown, bald, 7 feet tall, white dude. for all the crazy stories and for all the lies and for making up so many of the anecdotes and the stories he's telling. Oh, my friends on Wall Street tell me we're entering a Great Depression. Who, Donald? The guy that's been dead since 2005 that you cited? Come on. For all that, I want to look forward a little bit because it was an example of this guy being off the rails and insane. And you can see the cracks and you can see the breaking points. He was much smaller than he's been in the past. His ability to control his emotional affect and his ability to try to pose as a serious person was basically zero. So you know what you're seeing. But the problem with it is we're going to enter into a phase where the post-truth world of America, particularly in the MAGA universe, where they believe that the truth is completely malleable and fungible and can be made into what they want. I saw a MAGA headline this morning that said, Harris backs out of Fox debate, which she never agreed to a Fox debate, so she can't back out of it. But this sort of thing that's going on with Trump yesterday, you're going to see a lot more of it. And so you're going to see the lying scale up. You're going to see the bullshitting scale up. It's going to get crazier and crazier and crazier. I'll give you a perfect example. The right wing is desperately trying to make a meme or a hashtag flow right now called Tampon Tim, claiming that he passed a law that mandates putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. Bear with me. You're going to be shocked to hear this, but it's a lie. It's a lie. A journalist from the Star Tribune went out and looked into it. It turns out it's not true. Not at all. Not even remotely close to true. There's no valid line in that law that says this is the case. What they did do was pass a law so that school nurses and in women's bathrooms and in principals' offices and guidance counselors' offices and in sporting facilities, girls can get access to period products. I'm sorry. I know that anything that causes the life of any American to be even marginally better has to be attacked as communism or transgenderism or whatever ism is scaring Republicans this week. But that's the kind of small lie you will see concatenate into bigger and bigger and bigger lies. That's the kind of ha-ha funny, we're making it a meme lie that becomes a fundamentally corrosive untruth in our bigger political culture. They do this because they can get away with it. They get away with it because the eyeballs and the clicks that are driven by these kind of lies draw people in. And you'll eventually see the mainstream media covering their bullshit as if it were a real news story. So you'll see a headline eventually saying, Walz denies putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. He shouldn't have to deny crazy. You do not have to tell both sides of a lie because one side of a lie is fundamentally invalid. It is a lie. The truth should matter more in our campaigns. The truth should matter so much more in our campaigns. And that is one of the most corrosive things Donald Trump has done to our political lives and our political culture and our political belief systems is lie all the time about everything. He never stops lying. He never stops. He is so fundamentally broken as a human being and so fundamentally look, I use the word evil advisedly, but there's something broken and evil inside of Trump that makes him this way. He lies because he can. He lies because he gets away with it. He spent 40 years getting away with lying about his business and his personal life and everything else by telling a bigger lie after the first lie got caught. You and we deserve better than that. And you and we deserve a campaign that is fact-checked, and I want it fact-checked aggressively on every count. I want Kamala Harris fact-checked just as aggressively as Donald Trump. The difference is, you know what Donald Trump is. You know he is a professional inveterate, constant, sociopathic liar. Now, look, has Kamala Harris ever told a lie in her political life? I'm sure she has. You know why? Because all politicians bullshit. All politicians cast their case in the best possible light. But the kind of things that Trump does as a professional liar are so beyond any other politician I've ever seen in my life. And that line I used a minute ago, all politicians are bullshitters, it's absolutely true. They are telling a story of their lives and their goals and their approach to America. But Trump is always telling you a lie that's destructive. Sometimes these regular politicians, Republicans and Democrats, are trying to sell. This is a game of persuasion. Sometimes they're trying to sell a persuasive argument. But for Trump, it's always corrosive. It's always dark. It's always broken. It's always so negative and so evil that you have to wonder what is inside of his soul. And the warning from yesterday, it's important to just internalize this. The warning from yesterday is that Trump can still make the media bark like dogs. And there were a lot of good reporters in that room. There were even some pretty good questions. But unfortunately, they're still framing the questions as if this is a debate between a normal Republican and a normal Democrat. They're still framing this debate as if it is between a sane person and another sane person. It is not. You have to remember that the media is driven by the conflict, by the light, the heat, the noise of the conflict of the campaign. That's fine. That is what they do. They cover the news of the campaign. And I as a person who sometimes sounds critical of the media, I love journalism. I love journalists. They are an essential part of this country's infrastructure and political and constitutional ecosystem. Without reporters, without journalists, without reporting, and without journalism, we would not be America. It's a sacred obligation. And yes, it's unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, also a business. And the business decision to give Trump free reign, open runway, hour-long blocks of free television, when you're not doing the same thing for Vice President Harris, it's a business decision we know the outcome of. We know what happened in 2016. We know that Jeff Zucker and the CNN folks made a very conscious decision that Trump would be something that saved their ratings. They used that decision, gave Trump $1 billion worth of free media, probably. I calculated it once. The number of media hits he did, the hours on television, figured it all out. If you do that again as a network, without fact-checking him, without calling his bullshit, without addressing the elephant in the room of Trump's lies and mendacity and evil, we will get the same result we did before. We will get an outcome like we did before that shocks you, that surprises you, that on election day, people say, oh my God, I thought we'd never elect somebody who was this dishonest. I thought we'd never elect somebody who was this evil. I thought we'd never elect somebody who was this is dark. I thought we'd never elect somebody who doesn't believe in America. I thought we'd never elect somebody who doesn't believe in the fundamentals of this country. And look, campaigning is hard work. It's a tough business. And people are going to push and push and push the edges as hard as they can. And Trump is the ultimate transgressive candidate. He will lie. He will cheat. He will steal. He will do anything to win. He will do anything to beat a woman, especially. As you go forward, though, just remember, when you're calling out your media friends and the journalists who cover this race, just saying that they're in the pocket of Trump or they're doing it for the money, it isn't really correct. But it is correct to say that if they do this blindly, if they do this reflexively, if they both sides this campaign, when both sides are not equivalent, when both sides are not morally equal, when both sides are not politically equal, then you're doing a disservice to your profession and to your country. And that, folks, is the elephant in the room in the main. Now, the other elephant in the room I want to talk to you about today is these attacks by the Trump campaign on Governor Walz and his military service. This is what I call playing the one-note flute. If you have a flute that only plays one note, that's the only song you know. And Chris LaCivita, who runs Trump's campaign, is playing the one-note flute. He is the guy who did the Swiftboat Veterans for Truth ads against John Kerry. He is the guy who did those ads in 2004. They worked. And he really wants to play that again and hopes to succeed by, once again, taking the military service of a veteran and demeaning it and picking it apart and trying to say that not only was Tim Walz not a patriot, but that his service was entirely false. It's all bullshit. Well, I have bad news for Chris. Tim Walz served for 24 years in the Minnesota National Guard. He had an honorable service. He was a senior enlisted man the entire time. He was loved by his folks. He did not abandon them. He was set to retire 10 and a half months before the Iraq War started. This is not a debatable question. There's paper on it. But they're still going to try to make this into a thing on the right. And it's going to please them greatly to try to tear down his military service. Look, folks, I believe that Tim Walz served honorably. All the records indicate that. You know who else served honorably? J.D. Vance, deployed to Iraq, PAO. Not a combat guy, but still there, still served honorably, still came home. And the idea that they're going to try to play this comparison game between Walz and Vance's service is completely wrong. It's completely wrong. The problem for Donald Trump in this campaign, and this is where the Democrats may be getting this a little bit off kilter, and I want to remind you, Democrats, listen closely to what I'm going to tell you. Do not play defense on Tim Walz anymore. Go on offense. Go on offense. Instead of saying, well, Walz's records indicate this and that. No. The answer is to say Donald Trump had 5 fraudulent bone spurs medical deferments for the Vietnam War. He boasted about avoiding the draft. He boasted that his personal Vietnam was Studio 54 and chasing Strange in New York in the 70s and 60s.
Mr. Trump tasked me to handle the negative press surrounding his medical deferment from the Vietnam draft. Mr. Trump claimed it was because of a bone spur. But when I asked for medical records, he gave me none and said that there was no surgery. He told me not to answer the specific questions by reporters, but rather offer simply the fact that he received a medical deferment. He finished the conversation with the following comment: "You think I'm stupid? I'm not going to Vietnam."
Donald Trump denigrates the men and women who served in our armed forces. He has insulted them repeatedly. No matter how many times he tells you it wasn't the suckers and losers lie wasn't true, there are multiple eyewitnesses to the suckers and losers line. No matter how many times he tells you that he respected POWs, people who weren't captured and didn't respect POWs, you should remember who he was talking about. John McCain, who served 5.5 years in the most brutal possible inhumane conditions in a North Vietnamese communist prison system. This is a guy who loathes the military. He loathes soldiers. He loathes their service. Why? Because Trump looks at the military as something that the lower classes conduct themselves in. He looks at it. He looks at it as something they're so desperate they have to go serve, or they won't make it. That's how Donald Trump looks at our military. He doesn't look at it as a backbone institution of a free democracy. He looks at it as a welfare program. And that's why he has contempt for our men and women in uniform. So do not play defense by trying to work through the details of every moment of Walz's service and the paperwork and the forms and all that. Go after Trump. Go after Trump. Go put it in Trump's face that he's, Colonel Von Pussy Grabber of decorated veteran of Studio 54. Donald Trump, who stormed the beaches of Turtle Bay in Manhattan. Yet this guy is an unbelievable shitbird on this issue. You've got a giant, soft, fat target floating right in front of you. Go get it. One more elephant in the room, and I promise I'll stop. I know it's Friday. I know you guys have things to do on the weekend. I'm going to ratchet down a little bit. One of the rules I've always had in campaigns from the very moment I started campaigning was you leave the families out of it. We're like the mafia. You leave the families out of it. You leave the kids out of the political fight. I didn't say a word about Barron Trump for 9 years. I still don't really go after Barron Trump all that much. He's still basically a child. But in the congressional campaign in the New York 1st District this week, a Republican MAGA congressman, who is one of the giant Trump suck-ups, went after John Avlon, who is running as the Democrat. I will tell you right now, John's a friend. We've known each other for 25 years. But what Nick LaLota did was post pictures of John's children as a way to attack John. That, my friends, is fucking sick. Do not do that. That is something that is beyond the pale. It's sick. It's weird. This guy was creeping around the internet trying to find pictures of John's children to make a political attack on him. He's going through John's personal accounts trying to find a social media picture of his kids. It's sick. Nick LaLota is a sick, sick man. There is something wrong and broken with his brain. Look, he's pretending to be like this moderate Republican, except he's a total Trumper. And he's behaving like a Trumper. And this idea that you attack people's children, it is beyond the pale. The guy is Nick LaLota. I find it easy to find a lot of Republicans and MAGAs who behave in ways that are reprehensible, because a lot of the things they do and they say and they believe, especially in their worship of Trump, are reprehensible. But the fact that Nick LaLota brought children into this fight, he needs help. First off, he needs to leave the race. He needs to get mental health care because he's putting the pictures of children in the campaign. It's disgusting. I am truly sickened by watching someone like that behave that way. Anyway, folks, those were the elephants in the room this week. Have a great weekend. I am going to get on the tractor and mow the yard because I'm about to be on the road for the next 3 months. Yay! All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. As always, folks, I'm going to ask for a big favor from you. It's really important that you like, subscribe, share the podcast. All those things really, 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 really matter to us. They are really important as a way to spread the message of the Lincoln Project and spread the message of the pro-democracy movement. You can be a part of this fight, and it only takes a few clicks. I'd really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Good night and good luck.